this tiny, forgotten town in the middle of nowhere. I found an old farmhouse for rent, surrounded by nothing but fields and quiet. It was perfect. To track my sleep quality, I downloaded one of those apps, the kind that records you if you snore. I figured it would just be a few minutes of silence, proof that I was finally getting some peace. The first night, I set my phone on the nightstand, hit record and drifted off. The next morning, I made some coffee and checked the app. It had recorded something, a short clip, right at 3:17 a.m. I put my phone to my ear, expecting to hear myself snoring, or maybe the house settling. Instead, a voice whispered my name. It was soft, gentle, almost like a parent talking to a sleeping child. Then it said, "You're not supposed to be awake yet." My blood ran cold. I played it again. The same whisper. It had to be a prank, right? Maybe some weird bug in the app, or a friend messing with me. I opened the file on my computer to look at the waveform, the visual representation of the sound. That's when I saw it. The whisper wasn't just a whisper. There was a secondary frequency layered underneath it, one that was far, far outside the range of a normal human voice. It was something else entirely. I spent the whole day trying to rationalize it. A glitch, a radio signal interference, anything but what it sounded like. Still, when night came, I couldn't resist. I had to know. I opened the app again, hit record and placed the phone back on my nightstand. I tried to stay awake, staring at the ceiling, but eventually exhaustion won. The next morning, my hands were shaking as I reached for my phone. There was another recording, again at exactly 3:17 a.m. I pressed play. This time it wasn't one voice, it was two. They both whispered my name, their voices weaving around each other. Then they started talking. "He's listening now," one said. The other replied, "He shouldn't be. It's not for him." As I was listening, I noticed something else. A faint static coming from my bedside radio. A vintage thing I'd found in the attic. Unplugged and purely for decoration. The static grew louder, and mixed in with it, I could hear the whispers again. But this time they weren't just in my phone. They were coming from the walls, from the floor, echoing all around me. It felt like the entire house was talking. I practically ran out of the farmhouse. I needed people, noise, anything to drown out the memory of those whispers. I ended up at the town's only diner. It was one of those classic places with vinyl booths and a long counter. I sat down, ordered coffee, and tried to act normal. I had to ask. I leaned toward the waitress, a young woman who looked tired, and asked her if she'd ever heard strange noises at night, like radio static or whispers. She froze. The coffee pot in her hand trembled, and all the colour drained from her face. She just shook her head and walked away. I looked around. The few other locals in the diner were now studiously avoiding my gaze, staring into their plates or out the window. A deep, unsettling silence fell over the room. Finally, an old man sitting at the end of the counter turned on his stool. He had lived here his whole life, you could just tell. He looked at me with weary eyes and spoke in a low, gravelly voice. "You don't want to be awake at 3:17, he said. "That's when the town checks who's still listening." He told me a story that sounded like something out of a Cold War fever dream. Decades ago, the government had run an experiment here called Project Somnus. The idea was to communicate with people in their sleep, planting ideas, maybe even controlling dreams. They installed hidden transmitters in every building in town, broadcasting on a frequency that was supposed to be imperceptible to the conscious mind. According to the old man, the project was officially shut down, but the equipment was never removed. The broadcast never stopped. It just evolved. my phone tick closer and closer to 3:17 a.m. My heart was pounding in my chest. Exactly 3:17. The room went dead silent, and then my unplugged radio clicked on by itself. Static crackled, and then a voice came through, clear as day. It was my voice, exactly my voice. "Stop recording," it said. "You're not supposed to hear this part." My own voice, coming from the radio, continued to whisper, talking about the town, about how it was a hive mind that fed on the consciousness of its sleepers, on the listening minds. It said that by being awake, I was interrupting the process. I was an anomaly that needed to be corrected. And then I heard it. A tiny, sharp sound. A knock. It was coming from inside my phone speaker. A desperate, rhythmic tapping. Like something was trapped in there, trying to get out. I don't know what happened to him after that. He vanished. The farmhouse was found empty a week later. His car still in the driveway. The only thing he left behind was his cloud account. The local police found one last audio file, uploaded automatically just after he disappeared. It was the last recording from his sleep app. The clip is short. All you can hear is a soft chime and a pleasant automated voice saying, "Recording saved, new user detected." And then it says his name. The thing is, that sleep app is still on the store. People download it every day, hoping to catch themselves snoring. They place their phones on their nightstands, right by their heads, and drift off to sleep.